give you guys my thoughts real quick. It was a good show. I want to say that right off the bat. It was not a bad TV show. The show was pretty good. It talks a lot about Colin Kaepernick's childhood. Anything from like cultural identity and like fitting into a white neighborhood and, playing sports, being doubted, cut, all of these things, falling in love with with an African-American girl and who was dark skinned and, having white parents and like the interplays of all that. Like there's a lot of different cool issues that they talk about in this show, in the series. That being said, there was something that was a little off about this show. It felt a little off. There was something off about it. I have not been able to articulate what that off is. There's one particular scene that really threw me off in this whole thing, whereas when Colin Kaepernick compared the NFL Combine to slavery, that was just a jarring image that made no sense in my opinion, but that's my opinion. I thought that was like a really, really bad correlation, is not causation type situation. I personally was like, okay, this argument is very much a stretch, but you know what? To each their own. And if African Americans feel like that was a legitimate point of contention and that the combine does feel like that, then totally. I thought that Colin Kaepernick would talk a lot more about the draft process and how, African American quarterbacks are more scrutinized when it comes to character and all of these things, whereas white quarterbacks are not. I thought if he talked about that, I would have totally agreed. But the way he talked about the combine was really weird. That was in the first episode. And a lot of people are not a fan of that. There's been a lot of dialogue about that. But it's also been something, the Kaepernick show in general has been something that's gone really under the rug, which I'm kind of shocked about. It's a good show, for sure. It does provide a lot of context into Colin Kaepernick's childhood. I'm sure it's pretty relatable for African-American kids out there. So, another good piece of representation for them. I did like Colin Kaepernick's narration for the most part. I did like how he provided a good context into certain issues. I feel like this is definitely a show that's built for teenagers. And even like people, preteens 9 through 12, like this is definitely something that's very relatable for them. And that's important. And I think Kaepernick narrates the show in a way where he makes it relatable and very understandable and digestible for these individuals, which is cool. But the whole show really talks about like Kaepernick being this amazing pitcher. Like he was getting offers from every college in the country. He's a great pitcher. He could pitch the ball really well. He had a really nice fastball. Like he could, it talks about how he's great at pitching. But it doesn't really talk about like it talks about why he was a great pitcher, and he talks about how he had to work his ass off to become a quarterback and go to the NFL and all this stuff, or to go to college and all this stuff. I really didn't get the fact of like why Kaepernick did not like pitching so much. Like their reasoning was like, you just know when you fall in love with something, which is like, yeah, that's a fair point, but like I don't know. I felt like I wish there was more explanation into that. It delved a little deeper into it. But it did not, in my opinion. I felt like it didn't. Yeah, no, I really do wish that overall, though, it talked about his full career. So, like, it talked about, a little bit of his time at the University of Nevada. I would have loved to see, some 49ers scenes in there, of course, not being a fan, but also just, like, I would love to have heard what his tenure was like because, he took us to a Super Bowl. Like, his tenure was no joke with the Niners, and, it ended, obviously, on a really bad note. But there was a lot, of other things within the situation that I would have loved to hear about. And, it's unfortunate that, I didn't get to see that full story, but it was cool to see a lot about his childhood. Definitely learned a lot. Definitely, really felt that it was a very good, show in what it was trying to portray, but there was something a little off about it. And I'm curious if you guys have seen it, please feel free to comment. Tell me what you thought. Tell me what you thought was off about it, or if there's nothing off about it at all, and I'm just being weird. So anyway, would love to hear your thoughts.